Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Federal Conference's The Art of the Possible. Very excited about today. I'm excited every week about our episodes, but this is reuniting me with a very old, dear friend of a family from the Ritz-Carlton back when I was a little younger, but that's another story. Super excited to have with us today Barbara Lootz, who is the Director of Global Luxury Sales for Marriott International Luxury Brands. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, Phil. It's great to see you.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure.
Great to reconnect.
Absolutely. Sharing stories. So Barbara's been with Marriott International this coming Saturday, and I know I kind of wasn't supposed to say anything, but this coming Saturday, she's with Marriott International Ritz-Carlton for 29 years, along with her mother's birthday. Is that correct?
Very important day. Yep, very important day.
Very important day. And she joined the Ritz-Carlton Boston in 1991, opened the second Ritz-Carlton Boston in 2001, and has been part of the Marriott luxury team since 2017. Those brands include the Ritz-Carlton, as well as the new yacht collection, which I do want to talk to you about later off record, as well as the Gary and the luxury collection. So a lot of great brands within Marriott. Barbara also, as you can imagine, lives in Boston and loves and cherishes her travel along with her family and friends. So again, welcome, Barbara. Good to have you.
Thank you. Yeah, excited I can actually start seeing some of my family and friends again. So cherished times and anxious for more in the future as things start to lift here in Boston.
And so things are opening up there in Boston.
They are. So we've been through phase one, which was more on the construction timeframe, obviously the essentials. And we're starting to see some hotels reopen this week, restaurants with outdoor dining. So good timing for Mom's birthday for Saturday. So we'll take advantage of getting back out there and anxious to get back out and support. So it's coming.
Excellent. And, we were kind of reminiscing a little bit about, I think, one of our closest, dearest friends ever, which is Sydney Novotny. So I think you just saw Sydney not that long ago, right?
Yeah, so I was on a panel last week, and I've certainly seen and heard as we have for years, right? She's fabulous as far as being such a big part of our industry, and certainly very vocal and motivating. And she's got a great message right now. So I was on a panel with her last week. And she obviously many years ago taught our Ritz-Carlton sales training, as you may remember. So yeah, she's got a great motivational message going right now, as she always does. But certainly someone you should probably tap on her shoulder and for this great series. And congratulations on putting this together, Phil. I love the positive spin on it. I really do. It's certainly what we need right now.
That's right. Thank you so much. And so I'm going to make this a public request to Sydney. So I'll be reaching out to Sydney. We'll talk to you soon and joining us on our next month's podcast, The Art of the Possible.
No pressure.
So speaking of opening up, Barbara, and sort of reaching into phase two for different states and cities and destinations, which means that people are starting to travel again, right? Mm-hmm. And super excited to welcome them and give them that warm welcome, right, that we do. But I think that, there's still some, concern as travelers and as planners in particular, because that's really sort of our audience today, are those meeting planners and what to expect, right? So how do I prepare myself, my program, my meeting, and more importantly, at the end of the day, our attendees? Mm-hmm. What do we do to help them? And so I think this particular episode is definitely on topic and bringing this full circle to help everyone, right? Whether you're a traveler or you're a planner, to kind of move forward. So as a planner or a traveler for that matter, what are sort of the things that I should sort of be looking for if I'm going into one of your hotels worldwide, right? So if I'm going into a Marriott, like cleanliness and standards, is there something printed? Like what should I be looking for? Can you comment on that, Barbara?
Absolutely. Thank you. No, I appreciate the opportunity to do that. And there is, I will say, no lack of information out there, which is a good thing, right? The industry has done a great job. All of the major brands, and even I've seen great independent hotel plans out there as well. But there's a lot of great information out there. And So, do that homework. And you'll hear me say throughout this conversation a lot, ask questions, because this is a learning process for all of us. There is no playbook, right? There was nothing we were all prepared for in this beforehand. So we're really doing our best to create the best plan that we can along the way. But Marriott has a great strategy in place, and hopefully people have had a chance to see some of it. But our commitment to clean was launched at the end of April 21st. And I think everyone, whether you're, again, a leisure traveler or planning a meeting, just to make sure you understand the brand's strategy, if you're working with a larger brand or obviously an individual hotel strategy. And we're at the point where we are at being able to prepare and explain both, which I'm really excited about. So from a brand perspective, we're in a great position, and it started with the creation of our Global Cleanliness Council, which is headed up by Ray Bennett, who's our Chief Global Officer for our company. And it includes not only in-house leadership and experts, but we sought outside of our industry to really bring experts in from Ecolabs. We have an infectious disease specialist from Adventist Healthcare, the School of Hospitality and Tourism Management at Purdue University, and I love this professor of food microbiology at Cornell University. So really a very well-rounded council that's focused on certainly the disinfection part of what we need to focus on the cleanliness part, but it's really a very holistic approach designed to take care of obviously our guests, but also our associates. So with 7,500 properties around the world, it's really a very holistic attack on this. And as Mr. Bennett's responsibilities do span the globe, I feel we're in a good position in truly putting our weight behind these initiatives that really will take into consideration the regional and cultural nuances that we have with our hotels around the globe. So really, again, a very holistic plan. And so I think making sure you understand what that brand strategy is so important. But then, obviously you get to the hotel, right, that you want to travel to or that you're doing your meeting in. And all of our managed hotels, after obviously receiving the brand focus and brand vision of where we're going and what those brand standards will be, have been charged with putting their own individual cleanliness practices together. So definitely ask the hotel that you're working with on, what those are. So we're starting to see all of our individual plans from our hotels. So I was reading through the Ritz-Carlton Naples and the Ritz-Carlton Key Biscayne, two of our great Florida resorts that are in action and doing really, really well. But I'll share just some of the details that I saw from their plans. The first, though, for all of our hotels is a great asset that we have in a cleanliness champion, which is basically a new position in all of our managed hotels. And it was a person selected by the general manager. In some cases, it is the general manager carrying that flag, but I know in a lot of our hotels, really someone dedicated, and it's really that becomes that local expert for us to gain momentum and gain just confidence really from both our associates, our ladies and gentlemen, as well as our guests coming into our hotels. So really making sure that the local laws and recommendations are also put into play, right? So we can certainly at a high level put great brand standards in place, but we know that every state, every county, every town is really, there are nuances with every single one of them. So how do we make sure that we translate these standards to our local markets is so critically important. And I think everyone needs to make sure they ask those questions and understand those. So if it's okay, I'll share some of the details that I'm seeing with some of the plans, if you think that would help. And I'll start with our associates and our ladies.
Sorry, Barbara. Just so one thing that hit me in what you've said so far is, at the end of the day, right, the buildings are buildings and they're assets, right? And I think what really that struck me is how important it is how you treat and take care of your associates, right? Your internal ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And I think that's such a critical piece that we sometimes lose sight of, right? Is who's actually serving you and are they taken care of, right? And so I thought that was really striking to me, and that you really brought that up. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it was just something that I thought was worth sort of talking about for a second.
Yeah, thank you. And it's actually the first point I want to speak to when it comes to the hotel plan, right? Because it really does start with our associates and our ladies and gentlemen. And we have, as you probably remember, a very robust orientation process for all of our new employees, really across all brands. And it's really so important, right, to get a lady and gentleman, an associate, to embrace and understand the culture of our company and the brand of the hotel that they've joined. So rather than throwing someone in, right? So when you think about the longevity of our employees that have worked in our hotels, and they need to learn a new way, right? So these are some significant changes that we need to make sure everyone's on board. So it clearly starts with our associates, again, the orientation process, the training on sanitation protocols, enhanced, really, right? Sanitation protocols, temperature checks. All of our associates will have a temperature check before they come into the hotel. Obviously, the PPE equipment. So you will see, as a preparation for our guests coming in, you will see our ladies and gentlemen in masks, and in some cases gloves where appropriate. So that will be a different look for our associates as well as for our customers, right? But certainly something that we're committed to get everybody back into our hotels. So again, the hotel's plan includes that from the start with our associates, cleaning procedures, particularly in high traffic areas, right? And it's been interesting if you think about cleanliness or the cleaning process in a hotel. It's always been done on the overnight, right? It's never something that you've ever really wanted to show the guests, and it kind of happens when everyone puts their head on their pillow and we scurry and do our thing around the hotel. And right now, which we learned from the start with our hotels in China, obviously, who are the first, they're weeks ahead of us in this process, that we've moved that process front and center. We want our guests to see what's happening in the hotel from a cleanliness perspective. So we've kind of pulled back the curtain on that process, which is obviously very, very important. So for customers to understand what that plan is in the public areas, again, in the very high traffic areas, everything you'll read in these plans down to in the restaurant, if we're going that paper menu, that's a one-time use, or if it's a laminated menu, what's that, sanitation process after those menus are used. So you'll find detail like that. Housekeeping, obviously a very big topic of conversation. Some guests are not going to be comfortable with anyone in the room, and others are still going to want that daily housekeeping service, which we are committed to doing, if ideally without the guest in the room. So we want to obviously protect both parties, and so we'll do that cleaning without the guest in the room. Significant deep cleaning, obviously, in between stays. There's been a lot spoken of and written about these electrostatic sprayers, which I'm sure you've kind of heard about. We have been piloting these in our hotels for the past at least month. And if someone's not familiar with that equipment, it literally takes hospital-grade disinfectant with electrical currents that we will use to basically massively clean our guest rooms and our public spaces. So it really takes that cleanliness standard that we had to another level. Social distancing, clearly marked cues throughout the hotels for check-in, check-out, dining, valet, retail, spa. We were talking a few moments ago, Phil, before we started, just about that automated the technology, right? And it's really going to force some people to take advantage and use some technology that's been out there. Our mobile key feature on our Bonvoy app, that you can check in at the hotel, from your mobile device, obviously will be critical. And I think a lot of people will take advantage of that technology that exists. Guest elevators, big questions about how many people on the elevator and how do you manage that. So you will see the cues, as far as social distancing. And then specifically in the Ritz-Carlton Key Biscayne noted an elevator occupancy for just family members, or with the size of their elevators, for non-family members, in an elevator. So you'll, see that type of direction, and obviously our staff there to help explain that and guide that, and obviously signage that helps as well. Certainly some plexiglass panels, from a front desk perspective, from a concierge perspective, you will see some of that as well. Dining, when you think about, where everyone's sitting, dining, pools, beaches, obviously more limited seating, spread out, make sure that we have that social distancing in place. Sanitation efforts in between every guest. So, wiping down, chairs, everything from the pool side, beach side to our restaurants. I did read in one of them, roll-ups, for silverware. Obviously, table settings will look very different, both from a banquet perspective and a restaurant perspective, but, roll-up silverware, as a presentation. Out at the pool, where traditionally we have, water, kind of self-service stations of water and sunscreen, it'll be more single-use alternatives for those things. Fitness center, thinking through again where lots of people are. So those floor plans are going to look different in the layout. And then for your audience on today, Phil, certainly in the meeting set, right? That's where we're putting a lot of effort into, specifically groups and meetings and events. So we have redone, obviously, floor plans for all of our spaces and what that looks like. Seeing a lot of RFPs now with 1 per 6 foot. How many people are we putting at rounds, depending on the size, 72 inch, how many people are around those rounds? So really making sure that we're applying those social distancing rules across the board. No self-service food stations. So when you think about afternoon breaks, really prepackaged items. We haven't eliminated buffets completely, but they are staffed, serviced by our staff. So the traditional buffet looks very different. But if our staff is, obviously the one that is, holding those, obviously fully with the PPE equipment, we are still seeing some of that happen. Multiple groups in a hotel. I can't wait till we get back to that point in our hotels that we have several groups happening, but I think you'll see a lot more orchestration of, coffee break times and how do we limit some of that traffic that happens through the hotels, and obviously footpaths and, coming into the room one way and leaving another, and making sure that we're very visible with signage from that perspective. Individual bottled waters instead of carafes, pen and paper on request, all sanitized, as we transition, the use of those types of materials out. So at the end of the day, we want our guests to really know that they're in a safe environment. That is just critical right now, again, to build confidence and, get people back into the hotel. So ask for these plans. I encourage our planners out there to ask the hotels, read these brand standards that are out there, and ask questions, because there is not a bad question. We are learning daily by the questions that get asked of us. And I did want to make one note, just because of my luxury background. There's been a lot of question to me about, what does this look like in luxury? Luxury is that high touch, feel and environment. So when you kind of think about this more sterile, look and feel of some things. And I've heard just some great stories of how our, hotels are still bringing that service to life. And when you think high touch, we're not physically, right? It's not physically necessarily high touch. So, you think about that smile in your voice when you're on the phone with someone. You can still smile very much through your eyes, although our staff will have a mask on. They're there to just extend the best of service. And our guest relations team, who reaches out to customers before their stay to make sure that we're hitting, every detail of that stay to make it wonderful. That's all been done at social distance space for years. So that's so important. And then I heard a great story from our St. Regis in Washington, D.C., who, when the guest checks in, they're actually now presenting the key on a silver tray. So I feel like in some ways this is going to elevate, some of our amazing service standards as well. Keeping that social distancing in mind. So I loved that. I loved that story.
Yeah,
so I hope that gives touch points.
Yeah, that's pretty comprehensive. And, again, the whole premise of our series is about being positive. And when you think about it, I look at it a glass half full, and I think there are a lot of benefits that come out of this, right? So rethinking our experience and, going back to the basics of the Ritz-Carlton, right, which is anticipation of guest needs. Well, gosh, you're already doing that. So if those things are in the room and already taking place, and the room is sanitized and everyone can feel comfortable about that, right? So to your point, you're not always touching the customer, right? But it is that anticipation of guest needs and in the fun farewell and the warm welcome, right? So, yeah, yes. I think that there are a lot of positives that will come out of this. We can certainly focus on the negatives, right, if we want. But Absolutely. The reality, we're moving forward. We're moving forward, and we will be successful. And people are going to start coming back to the hotel. So a lot of amazing, helpful tips from that. So super helpful. But we're not done, Barbara. I have a couple more questions.
Please.
So knowing that coming into the hotel, would you say that knowing your attendee or the person that's going to be traveling is important? So if I've got a group and gosh, I don't know, it's 50 people. And, let's just say the demographics are, from an age group perspective, they range from, I don't know, 30 to 60 or something. I mean, is that important to know? And how is that useful to you as a hotel, to the planner, to the attendee? What does that look like?
Yeah, that's I think probably one of the more critical points right now, and good timing, because I'll speak about a group that we just executed at one of our resorts. But and it's not going to be an easy thing, right? So because this obviously has touched everyone in a very personal manner, right? Everyone of my family and friends all has a little bit of a different concern, or some say maybe lack of concern. Some are much more confident about getting back out there right now, and others are still like, yeah, I'm not really heading out to a restaurant yet. I'm really not ready to get on a plane yet. So it's amazing the varied place that everybody is at for their own personal reasons, and you have to respect obviously the place where everyone is on this. So trying to get your arm around where your audience is, I'll say probably isn't easy, but I think a very important step in the process of moving forward, with an event, and understanding where everyone's sensitivities lie to that. So, and again, I commented that we've been watching very, very closely all of our hotels in China, where they were obviously the first to be impacted and the first, that we watched come out of this. On a side note, very excited to say that all of our hotels are reopened in China, which just we're so excited about. And just lends to where we're headed, fingers crossed. So, but it's been interesting as well to watch, how they reopened, and, the masks and the gloves, and just kind of being a little more, hesitant, coming out to where they are now, where you literally, we sometimes think of like almost two different camps happening. You've got customers now who are just not even wearing a mask anymore, versus others that, again, still at that, where's your mask? And I'm not leaving, without my mask. And we just executed a group, I was saying, at one of our resorts. And it was interesting to see, the level, and this demographic of this group skewed a little bit younger. I'm not sure where they came from, the Midwest. So depending on obviously where someone's traveling from as well, and how hard hit that area has been. Someone coming out of the Northeast, New York possibly may be a little more sensitive to this, maybe, versus an area that hasn't been as hard hit. So this particular group was, very confident, not a lot of masks, ready to take that, that ladle in the buffet and serve themselves. And but fully respected obviously where our staff was in mass, but not necessarily paying attention to the arrows of where people needed to walk. So it's going to take both sides. The hotels can put all of these processes in place, but we do need to make sure they're communicated effectively to the attendees. Ideally, if we understand what the sensitivities of this group are, we can help communicate prior, to their arrival to the hotel, so that they know what to expect and know what to look out for. But I think that's a critical part in communicating to your attendees, and then working with the hotel to truly understand, what is the plan, and then how can we just help make everybody feel confident? How do we make everybody feel comfortable before they even leave their home to head to the hotel? We want them to be excited, to come to the hotel and to re-engage, and not to be fearful. So we really do want to make sure that communication happens, but trying to understand as best we can where the again the sensitivities are of the group that's coming. I think so important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all know that meeting plan is one of the top 5 most stressful things in careers, right? And so the days of just worrying about, are we lactose or vegan or whatever, now we add one more layer. But out of all of them, it's probably the most critical piece to know is kind of, where are you on that scale of, I'm good, I don't really care, or I'm really super concerned and I don't know if I want to even travel. So a lot going on. And I can say for our customers, that's one of the things we're working with them on, is helping them go through that process, right? So surveys and feedback and sensitivity. So all of those sort of pieces that we're putting together goes hand in hand with what you're trying to achieve on the property level. So
and events like this are critical, right? It keeps the communication going, and so people participating in panels and sharing ideas. As I said, no question is a bad question right now. And even from an industry perspective, we're all learning from each other. So it doesn't help just one, it helps the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So I hope we have enough time for maybe one more question, if that's okay with you, Barbara.
Yes,
You've been very gracious, so thank you for that. I think, at the beginning of this, there was always like, oh my gosh, my program, what am I going to do? And we're sort of coming out of that. And it is, again, sort of our customers, we're going back and reevaluating, is the space appropriate based on social distancing? Do we need to do, satellite locations where we have monitors? And so you still get that personal engagement. And now it's, our program is fine because it's in September, October, and now we're starting to get a little more concerned. And so if I've got a program in 2020, or maybe even, gosh, for 2021, what would be something that a planner should do? I mean, should they call? Should they kind of wait to see what happens? Or what are your suggestions on that?
Yeah, I would say, there's a lot of wait and see happening out there, right? For the obvious reasons, because I don't think anyone thought we'd still be in this place back in March. I think everyone thought there'd be a little more definitive window, to this, particularly as we go through launch into the summer months. But if particularly for 2020, I would say there's still a lot of events on the books. Our hotels still have a lot of programs on the books, which just warms our heart, right? We're just so excited over those. But if anyone is, and I'm sure everyone is, right, just still watching things very closely and wondering, I would say pick up the phone and talk to the hotel. Work with the hotel on, what do you think it looks like? Before you just pull the plug, on a program and cancel a program, have that conversation with the hotel. Engage with them on, what type of options are there. I've seen everything from programs that are absolutely holding strong with their number, and because availability looks a little bit different right now, they've been able to move into larger space in one of our hotels. So we're meeting that social distancing requirement and need, but they're able to keep their numbers. On the flip side, I've seen a lot of flexibility from our hotels around attrition and cancellation. Honestly, if someone is concerned now, talk to the hotel about holding cancellation marks where you are now before you just cancel. Like, let's talk about just watching this for another month or two before you make a decision to cancel. Let's talk through attrition and food and beverage minimum numbers. What do you really think your audience looks like? So we want and need to get meetings, back up and running in our hotels for the whole industry. And so I think you're going to find an incredible level of desire from the hotels to want to make that happen. And there are going to need to be probably some risk takers, right, out there. We need those risk takers to jump in and say, yeah, thank you, that, we're going to move ahead. And it may look a little bit smaller, but we're still going to do it. I've seen a lot of creativity, and also you'll see in the hotel's plans around streaming, the speaker from your general session into smaller breakout rooms, into one-on-one rooms in your guest rooms. We've also talked to a few customers about, and seen this, other brands talking about this as well, of doing regional meetings. So you've got your main meeting happening in one location, but you've got a few regional destinations set up so that you can drive to a destination and still feel part of the larger event, but you're doing it maybe from a distance that makes you feel a little more safe. So we're seeing some great creativity around that. And I think look at some of the hotels, and particularly now, this time of year where we've got weather on our side, some of our hotels that offer great space. The Ritz-Carlton Bacara Santa Barbara, there are 19 buildings spread out over their property, over acres of green space, a lot of outdoor space. You can really, separate the group, keep your people within, separate areas within the hotel. So there's really great ways to be creative around it. And I just encourage everyone to engage with the hotel, start asking those questions, start talking about options, and how we can, keep these meetings in place and going. So important to our industry.
So a lot to unpack. I mean, there, from a brand perspective, whether it's Marriott or any other brands, obviously they've been feverishly working 24 hours a day to figure out what's next and how do we, welcome our guests back to the property. We had a question come in that I thought was sort of intriguing. So, I've been fortunate to be able to experience a Ritz-Carlton on both sides, right? But many travelers, are going to be more along the lines of, your big box hotels, such as the Marriott brand itself. Is it safe to say that those similar processes and things will be implemented throughout all of the brands?
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. So the when I started with that global council, that is that is all 30 brands. So when you're looking at the Marriott brand standards of that global cleanliness council, that is absolutely every single brand. And then each managed hotel, no matter what brand you are, is responsible for putting those state local policies and procedures for their hotel. So I just, obviously got a hold of the Ritz-Carlton one this morning, but you will get that from our JWs, from our full service Marriotts, Westin, Sheratons. So ask that question of whatever brand that you're working with, and you will those will be in place. So it goes across all 30. Goes across all 30.
And when would those, do you feel like would be a fair time that those would be ruled out, Barbara?
You should be able to ask the questions now. So early June is when each managed hotel was responsible for putting those together. So I would engage in that conversation now.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have any other further questions. I don't know if we have any other additional questions that have come in. I really liked the last question, super helpful. So again, I think amazing information, a lot to unpack. We are at a half hour, which I think is one of our longest podcasts, but
sorry, I was chatty.
No, I mean, it's like, so it went by, first of all, it was just amazing, right? Just being with you and talking and sharing such information that, again, at the end of the day, it helps us feel comfortable and be able to move us forward in a positive direction, right? Yeah. So I can't thank you enough, Barbara, for joining us today. And, I would say this to everyone in the audience that's watching, until next time, if we all stay focused on the possible and the positive, and go out and make a difference, a positive difference in someone else's life, I think that will help everyone in our society continue to move forward. So without any further comments, Barbara, I wish you a fond farewell, as we would do at the Ritz-Carlton. And thank you so much. And to our followers, we will send out for next month's, and hopefully we'll see Sunita Butney. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you. Thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.